Good morning and welcome to YouTooSpain Live. And today we have the breaking news from Spain just for you. So join us with questions and comments on the live chat over there or down there, depending on which device you are connected with us on, or in the comments below. You can, especially if you're watching afterwards, because you are part of this too. You're all very welcome to YouTooSpain. Let's have that theme tune. And let's dance. Oh yeah, groovy. We are with you, and welcome to you all. Welcome first of all to those people joining us on the live chat. To Jason from Jason's Web 1. He says, good morning all. Let's put you up on the screen for a change. There you go. Good morning all. And Yogi, our very good friend Yogi. Good morning, Scats. Hope you're doing well, buddy. I'm very well today. Thank you very much. Mad David, he's not late to the party after all today. He's been joining us about 3/4 of the way through recently, but yes, welcome. You're getting the whole lot today, instantly. Wayne says, good morning, Scats. And I'll continue to say good morning to everybody as they come up in between the news items. Paul Cook, thank you for joining us. And hello to everybody else who's just joining us. So yeah, give us a wave. Make sure you put a message on the live chat so that I know you're there and I can say hello to you. Ask me questions about the news items, please, this morning, or about the video that I did on Wednesday, which was a lot of news as well. It was current events. So thank you, Yogi, for the donation. If anybody does want to donate, there are lots of ways to do that. There's a GoFundMe QR code in the corner. And there's sort of membership things down here, I think, underneath your screen. Just click on the $sign. You can donate directly on there. So let's dive straight in with the news items. I'm going to do 3 in the first section, 2 in the next section, and then 2 in the latter part of the show. Brian in Brisbane says, good morning from wet, cold, grey Northampton. Bless you over there in the UK. Ron Haswell, good morning, Scats. First time. It's the first time for you. I'm going to put your name up on the screen there. Welcome to YouTooSpain. El Davido, morning. Yogi's asking, any further news on the ETIAS process? Nothing as yet. We have to go through EES first, which of course is the digital system where you, I've explained it on previous videos, haven't I? EES is where they've got the data on your cards and on your passports, and that checks who's coming in and out. ETIAS is the thing that's coming 6 months after that, which will be where you have to, it's like the American system, the ETA, I think it's called ETA. And that's where you have to pay a small amount. I think it's €7 or £5, whatever the exchange rate is. And you that gives you 3 years, and you have to put in lots and lots of details about where you're going, what you're doing, and all of that. So yes, no announcement has been made. Yogi's asking about the golden visa. The date when it actually goes is in April. I can't remember the exact date, but yes, if you've not already applied for the golden visa, but you've got a house, a property, or several properties that are worth over 500,000, that's the price you paid for them, then you can still apply. You do have time to apply. If you've not already bought the house, then it's probably too late to apply, but you never know. It's worth a chance, isn't it? Jason's Web says, a YouTuber I watch said the search for work visa has increased from 3 months to 1 year and anyone can apply for it. I think this is wrong and would be only for EU member citizens. Please clarify. I'm not sure what you mean for that. The search for work visas. No, I'm not sure what you mean there, Jason. Can you just explain a little further? And if I can't answer that, I'll pass it on to one of our experts. I've not heard about that. Let's get straight onto the news items then, and I'll watch out for your reply there, Jason. So, first one, I'd like to say thank you to SpainInEnglish.com and I'm using their news items page for the first 3 news items, and I'm going to use Sur in English, which is the newspaper for the south of Spain, but they do an all over Spain news page as well. So I'm going to mix it up today, and if there are any other news items you've seen that you want covering, then I'll see if I can find them as we go along. So let me just get myself in the picture there so I can continue to comment. And Jason's web says, I thought Chris was on today and would know. That's a very good point. Chris, unfortunately, has had bereavement in the family, so he can't be with us today. It's very sad. So please pass on your commiserations to him, and I hope you're okay. He's over there in the UK at the moment. And any update on the digital nomad visa? Nothing new there. That's still very active. And the person to ask, I believe, for that is Rochelle, who was on the show doing a video all about that. Jason said it's a visa you can apply for if you want to look for work in Spain. Oh, I think that's something to do with the student visa. Yes, have a look at After Brexit in Britain on Facebook. They did a post all about it. Somebody asked the question on there and was very excited, thinking that it was for everybody, but I believe it's to do with the student visa. You can only do it if you've already got the student visa and you want to stay there and look for work. So thank you for the question. So yes, it's not just for anybody to go and look for work. There you go. So first news item, we'll start with a fun one. I'm calling it a fun one. It's pretty serious for the guy in the Spanish minister who's been depicted in this photograph that you can see as a clown. Ryanair is saying there's illegal fines, but this is what's happened. A row between Ryanair and Spain's left-leaning coalition government flared up again on Tuesday after the budget airline launched a new ad campaign depicting Consumer Rights Minister Pablo Bustinduj, apologies if I've pronounced your name wrong, as a clown. Bustinduj's Consumer Rights Ministry in November slapped 5 low-cost airlines, including Ryanair, with a combined fee of 179 million euros for abusive practices, such as charging passengers for hand luggage or printing boarding passes at terminals when they did not have them. Irish no-frills carrier Ryanair's share of the fine was the largest, at 107.8 million. That's well over half. Ryanair demands that the minister cancels its illegal fines, the company wrote in a press release, accompanied by a photo of Ryanair's outspoken group CEO, Michael O'Leary, posing next to a real-life photo of Bustinduj sporting a red nose and a multicoloured wig. See main image, which you've already seen. The same image of the minister appears on Ryanair's social networks as part of a promotional campaign encouraging customers to book at a crazy price before a clown raises prices. He's always putting up stuff like that. He's famous for it, certainly in Ireland, but now seems around the world. He did say, I'm sure, on an earlier news item that he was pulling out of having planes in Malaga and a few other airports in Spain because of the same thing, I think. And but now he's just in an argument with them, and I've seen that they're putting more planes in. So can't understand what's going on. I think he's just a publicity junkie. There we go. Ryan said in a post on X that the illegal fines are contrary to both European Union law and previous rulings from the European Court of Justice, warning they will lead to increases in fares in Spain. There you go. So they're going to thinking of putting the fares up. Well, they'll lose customers there to some of the other airlines. O'Leary had also lashed out at Bustin Doorji at the end of last month, referring to him as a crazy communist minister who find out. I have to say that the PSOE, of which he is a minister, I believe, is nothing like communist. They're kind of a little bit kind of Blairite in their. They say they're socialist, but and they did have more socialist policies, I think, than Tony Blair. But I think they're not exactly well over on the left there. But anyway, referring to him as a crazy communist minister who fined airlines that have no choice but to restrict carry-on bags. Yeah, I know. I've been on a Ryanair flight fairly recently, back in November, when I went to my son's graduation from university in Ireland, and I just took a small backpack that could fit underneath the seat, just with a few clothes in there, so I could avoid the horrendous excess carry-on bag fare. So Bustin Doorji, who has a PhD in philosophy from the New School of Social Research in New York, which is known for promoting strong state involvement in the economy, told reporters his ministry had applied the law rigorously based on the 2014 ruling from the European Court of Justice. My obligation is to defend the rights of consumers. That is what I've done, and that is what I will continue to do, he said, adding no pressure campaign or insult would make him back down. Well said. And so that's that item. And Journey with Steve is asking, he's saying missing person. Matt Opperman disappeared 3 weeks ago, and the only clue so far has been his van, which was found empty during the search for him north of Malaga. Thank you for that information, Steve. Hopefully Matt will be found. I don't know if there's a news item. I've not seen a news item about it. Has that been reported in the Malaga newspapers? I don't know, but thanks for bringing that to our attention. Let's move on to the next news item. We'll move on to the one about Trump. Yes, of course. Trump announces reciprocal tariffs on the EU. Let's get rid of his photograph. I've had enough looking at him. And on the EU in retaliation to VAT. He's been doing this with a lot of countries, slapping on tariffs. And I don't know exactly what he's done since this was announced yesterday. US President Donald Trump has announced plans to implement reciprocal tariffs on foreign trade. Not really reciprocal, because VAT is charged everywhere. But anyway, reciprocal tariffs on foreign trade, meaning imports from international trading partners will face taxes equivalent to those levied on US exports. However, Trump considers structural, regulatory and fiscal hurdles as forms of tariffs. Yeah. His primary focus is on the European Union, primarily due to its value-added tax, VAT, known as IVA in Spanish, which applies universally to all products and is perceived by Washington as a non-tariff trade barrier. You can't get rid of the VAT. There you go. While the tariffs have been finalised, although actually as a business I don't pay VAT, IVA on anything that comes from outside of Spain, even from other European countries. So I'm not supposed to, at least. So I don't know how that affects. But this is people who haven't got a business, I suppose, that are being charged as well. While the tariffs have not been finalised and are not immediately enforceable, this delay suggests that Trump intends to use them as a negotiating tool to reduce the US trade deficit, the largest in the world. This policy could affect almost all countries, with exceptions limited to those that impose no tariffs on US goods. Yes, I think there's more than IVA and VAT involved in this. And yes, I do think it's a negotiating tool. I think everything that Trump says and does is a negotiating tool in some kind of way. On Thursday, Trump, that's my opinion, by the way, that's not what it says in this newspaper, I'll have to say. I'll be throwing those in from time to time, and you can put yours in the live chat, of course. On Thursday, Trump signed a memorandum in the Oval Office, and many of them, I think, initiating an administrative review by the US Trade Representative, the Treasury and the Department of Commerce to design and access the new tariffs. The memorandum's full text is yet to be released. This process runs concurrently with an investigation launched on Trump's first day in office, 20th of January, into unfair trade and monetary practices. That's unfair, he's been crying, obviously, specifically targeting nations with which the US runs a trade deficit. So the exact details remain unclear. The principle of reciprocity will consider various trade, fiscal and monetary barriers rather than adhering to a strict symmetrical tariff structure. There's a lot more that it says there, all about VAT. In 2024, the US trade deficit with the EU reached a record 235.57 billion, surpassing the 2022 high of 218.06 billion. A strong dollar against the euro has enhanced the competitiveness of European products in US markets. Well, you can do it, Trump, by just making the dollar stronger. That would be something which would reduce the trade deficit. It would get trade going the other way. Just an idea for you. I'm sure he's not listening to the show. The proposed negotiation strategy. So Trump has previously attempted to introduce reciprocal tariffs during his first term through a Republican-backed bill in Congress, which ultimately failed. The proposal offered two options: other countries lowering tariffs on US goods or the US raising its tariffs. Such a policy would challenge the World Trade Organization rules. India, led by Modi, Prime Minister, stands as one of the most exposed countries to those tariffs. Trump has, while reciprocal tariffs were a key campaign promise, Trump has postponed 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada until the 4th of March. So yeah, negotiating tool, and has only imposed a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, despite initially proposing 60%. And interestingly enough, Spain, a minister from Spain, I'm not sure if it was the Prime Minister, met with, no, it wasn't the Prime Minister, it was someone from the Trade Ministry, I think, in Spain, who met up with the equivalent in China to continue their reciprocal arrangements that they have directly with China. And let's see, tariffs on imports under $800 were also suspended due to logistical challenges. And Trump has imposed 25% tariffs on aluminium and steel globally, with no exceptions, intensifying the trade war. Additional tariffs on industries such as oil, semiconductors, copper and pharmaceuticals are anticipated. Yes. Interestingly enough, the ones that have the most sway in the American Parliament. So, what a surprise! So, any comments on that? Sorry to say, it says Buelema. Sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. Sorry to say, but most US states have sales taxes. Any different? No, not really. I've ordered stuff from the USA when I lived in the UK, when I lived in Ireland, and since I've lived in Spain. Usually from hippieshop.com, like this T-shirt that I'm wearing now. And yes, I'm quite prepared to give them a little advert online. And sometimes taxes and fees are applied and sometimes they're not. So it's difficult to say when they come through. That's customs charges, I think. Certain items get through and certain items don't. But yeah, there are sales taxes in different states. So there you go. that's all from that item, and we'll move on to the next one, which is all about let's find it. Yes, this is interesting. Spanish, French and German ministers say no Ukraine deal without the EU. This again is in response to Trump, I believe. The foreign ministers of Spain, France and Germany insisted on Wednesday that any resolution to the conflict in Ukraine must involve Kiev. How do you pronounce it now? Kiev? I'm always getting that wrong. And its European allies. The meeting of foreign ministers in Paris follows US President Donald Trump, there he is, his announcement that he had agreed to initiate immediate peace negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And he was talking about having a phone call with Putin first, rather than approaching the Prime Minister of Ukraine. Ministers and their delegations from Spain, Poland, Germany, France, the UK and the Ukraine had gathered in Paris to discuss Ukraine ahead of the upcoming Munich Security Conference, asserting that any prospective peace agreement must be forged with the participation of Ukraine and its European partners. Of course it must. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha, nice names, apologies again, I can't pronounce things in every language, highlighted Europe's critical role in securing a just, comprehensive and enduring peace for Ukraine, stating Ukraine's security and European security are indivisible. Yeah, they certainly are. The closer Ukraine gets to being a part of Europe, which is a movement that's been happening recently. Germany's Annalena Baerbock and Spain's José Manuel Álvarez, I know I can pronounce him right, both told the meeting that no decision on Ukraine could be made without Ukraine and called on EU countries to show unity on this question. That's what the EU does best, unity. That's what I believe anyway. Álvarez added, we want peace for Ukraine, but we want an unjust war to end with a just peace. Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski, they named the helicopter after him, addressing the media upon his arrival, reaffirmed Poland's commitment to seek increased military aid for Ukraine and maintaining pressure on Russia through sanctions. Of course, Poland are right there on the front line. They're on Russia's border, so it's vital for them. He also outlined the importance of cooperation with the US on helping to defend Europe, but stressed countries in Europe need to do more and more to improve their own defence. There is no better guarantee for the security of our continent than close transatlantic cooperation, Sikorski said. But Europe should do more and more for its own defence, both for the sake of the alliance and for our own sakes. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said there will be no just and durable peace in Ukraine without Europeans, following the meeting. There you go, well said. So let's just pull that off there for a moment and let's have a look at some comments. Oh, well, that's not very nice. British immigrants out of Europe. British immigrants out of Europe. Bit of a chant going on there. Don't agree with that. Why should British immigrants who are here paying their taxes and living in Europe be pulled out? That's just ridiculous. That would be, well, yes, I'm not going to go into that. And he's also saying Ukraine was going to win this war easily, but Trump ruined it. Well, you're entitled to your opinion there. Thank you for being involved. And but just before we continue, I've mentioned it earlier, but you may have noticed there's a QR code in the corner. If you've enjoyed something of value to you today, then scan that code to get to the GoFundMe page where you can read about how to make a donation to support YouTooSpain. Just scanning it doesn't mean you automatically make a donation, but you've got plenty to read there that tells you all about how you can support YouTooSpain and why it's a good idea, not just for me, but for you too. Help me to help you. Thank you in advance for doing that. JC is there Oh, he's got lots to say. Europe does enough for security. Mind your own business. America, they're part of NATO. It's very, very important. They set up NATO in the first place, JC. The house you live in is for native Spanish people. Well, one day my landlord will probably have his daughter and son-in-law living in the property that I live in, but this is a holiday property. I'm not sure that the native Spanish people who need housing, and there a lot of those people are in the cities, as we reported on one of our midweek videos, the people who need the housing, and we're going to talk about them as well on one of the news items, especially in Madrid and Barcelona and a lot of the bigger cities in Malaga too, are that they need affordable housing for them. They need house prices and rental prices to go down. Those kind of people could not afford the sort of holiday properties that a lot of British immigrants live in. And a lot of other immigrants from lots of other countries live in as well. And there's another news item coming up which will talk about Spain's population and why the Prime Minister is intent on bringing immigrants from lots of other countries into the country. And now it's ridiculous, he says. And he also says, okay, thanks. You're welcome. And where are you from, JC? Vastgoed? That sounds either Dutch or Belgian. I'm just guessing there. Apologies if I've got that wrong. And he says, yes, I know. I was just fooling around. There you go. Carry on fooling around. That's what I say. And stay alive. So let's move on to the next news item. And this is a lot to do with what you've just said. I think it's on Sur in Spain. Yes, it is. Let's bring that up for you. Little bit of introductory music there. Oh, we're the wrong way around. Let's switch. Pop, pop, pop. There it goes. Spain's population breaks 49 million milestone for the first time ever. The country has added almost 1 million inhabitants in just 2 years, thanks to the massive influx of foreigners who account for almost 1 in 5 of the population. That's almost 20%. So, Spain's population passed the 49 million population mark during the Christmas holiday season in 2024. According to data provided by the INE, National Institute of Statistics, on the 1st of January, there were 49,077,984 registered residents in Spain. The increase by 115,612 residents since the previous quarter records a new high for the country. The Spanish census has expanded by almost 1 million inhabitants in just 2 years. It has registered, you can see the graph there down below, 992,623 more people since January 2023. And that's, yes, almost 1 million in 2 years, which represents a rate of growth unknown since the early years of the century, when the country was immersed in a cycle of powerful economic boom, making it a magnet for the outside world. Yes, that's what happens when you start to become more wealthy and economically more powerful, as I reported in the Wednesday video when I was talking about Spain's growth, the GDP being the best in Europe at the moment. So the significant and rapid increase in population is exclusively due to the very potent influence of foreigners since the summer of 2022. This trend coincides with the remarkable recovery of the economy and employment in Spain. Isn't that ironic that bringing in more foreigners has actually increased the number of jobs? That's presumably the wealth that's coming in, more people paying taxes. So this is brilliant. We're not talking about illegal immigrants here. And so there we go. This trend coincides. Yes, I've already said that. The figures mark a positive era after the deep economic and social crisis unleashed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, and of course there was the crisis during the 2010s when Spain was even more in debt. So you can see the graph there going from 2021. There was that was part of the dip at the end of COVID, and then it shot back up. I don't know what the figures were. There was a dip, I'm sure, that happened during 2020 as a lot of immigrants rushed back to their own countries because obviously a lot of work had dried up. All of the work had dried up unless you were in the emergency services. Immigration is so far the most effective vaccine, interesting word, against the demographic freeze threatening Spain. In the last 5 years, it's become normal for there to be more deaths than births in the country. A constant population decrease can be observed. 20,505 fewer natives in the country since October 24, especially due to the gradual ageing of people in Spain and the plummeting births rate. The origin of the bulk of immigrants is Colombia, Venezuela and Morocco, it says. And the current wave of immigration began between the spring and summer of 2022, coinciding with the general vaccination and control of COVID-19 waves. Peak arrivals occurred between October 2022 and January 2023, and since then Spain's population has grown by more than 1% for 7 quarters in a row, with the foreign segment growing at close to 12 months. And I did read that UK immigrants moving to Spain and registering their residency, that's continuing to increase, and I think it's at levels beyond what it was in 2019. Probably the greatest number that have been here. It's well over 300,000 now. The rate of arrivals is still high, but mass immigration has been slowing for a year. I wonder if that's anything to do with the anti-tourism protests and marches and problems with housing and the changes to the laws about tourism licenses for rental properties. All of these things have been building up over the last year with the housing crisis. We'll talk about them a little bit later. There's a news item about that. Almost 20% of the population is of foreign origin. I've already said that. There we go. I think that's enough about that one. And the increases are very uneven in different parts of the country. It says, let's have a look. The main countries of origin of the migratory wave are practically the same quarter after quarter. At the top of the list are Colombia with 43,400 new residents between October and January 2024, Venezuela with 30 and a bit thousand, Morocco with 27 and a bit thousand, and Peru with 18 and a bit thousand. Much further down the line is Italy as the leading European contributor. Welcome, Italian immigrants, with 8,900 arrivals, followed by Honduras, Argentina, Ecuador and Ukraine. There we go. The 4 largest recipients are the regions of Madrid, Valencia and Catalonia, accompanied on this occasion by La Rioja and Murcia. Valencia doubled the rate of arrivals on a national level from October to January 2024. And I dare say that's because it's a relatively cheap place to live. Valencia is one of the cheaper cities to move to there on the east coast. And good luck to Valencia. It's apparently a lovely place, and I must go and visit soon. Right, let's have a look at some comments. Wayne says, hi Scats, if not already done, can you put links to the Spanish news sites you draw information from in your live chat? Thank you very much. Let's see if I can do that right now for you. I have them up at the top of my notes up here. See if I can add them. There you go. That's worked. Yeah, so Spain in English is the top one. I get a lot of news from there, and it's come up twice. How interesting. And Sur in English is also a very, very good newspaper based in Malaga, and that covers the whole of the south, certainly Andalusia. And Me Too says, would Chris be returning to the show next week? Well, normally he's on every fortnight, so no, this will be in 2 weeks' time. I think he'll be at the funeral next week of a family member. So unfortunately not next week. I'll tell you later on who's on next week. It's Antonio the Hestor. It was also so if it's information about taxation or lots of other things that Antonio is an expert in, then that is that'll be a lovely show for you. Join in anyway. Now, let's see, what was the next news item? Yes, let's move on to, yes, this is an interesting one. Europe grants Spain 72.7 million to install electric and hydrogen recharging stations. Well done. The 589 new recharging points planned will have an output of between 150 kilowatts and 350 kilowatts. I don't know how that relates to the cars. If anybody's an expert on that, then do help us out by leaving a comment in the live chat. The CEF Transport Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Facility, that's a long title, has granted Spain 72.7 million euros of EU funds to finance the deployment of supply infrastructure for alternative fuels. This is exactly what's needed to encourage more people to have electric cars or hybrids, and also the hydrogen ones as well. I've yet to see a hydrogen vehicle, I think. Although I'm not sure I'd recognise one. Presumably they'd say hydrogen all across the back of the car. Let's see. Hydro generators. A total of 8 business projects validated by the Ministry of Transport and Sustainable Mobility will receive grants from Europe to install 589 electric recharging points with an output of, as I said before, and also build 26 green hydrogen charging stations and decarbonise the ports of the Trans-European Transport Network. Excellent. These subsidies will mobilise about 400 million euros of investment in Spain to promote sustainable low-emission transport. Spain is doing a great deal towards this. The 8 projects involve companies from Spain and other EU countries and will serve to increase the number of refuelling and recharging stations for low-emission alternative fuels. In the port and maritime field, proposals are being selected for the electrification of terminals located in the ports of Barcelona, Valencia and Gijón, the development of infrastructure for the supply of ammonia in the port of Algeciras, and for the supply of methanol in the port of Huelva. The call to finance alternative fuels was published on 29th of February 2024 and has an endowment of 780 million euros under the general framework that initiatives in Spain can access, with 3 cuts for the presentation of proposals. The European Commission has opened the second cut of this AFIF call with a deadline on the 11th of June 2025. Proposals involving investment in Spain must apply for conformity following the procedure described by the Ministry of Transport and Sustainable Mobility. The CEF Connecting Europe facility grants are awarded on a competitive basis, and the projects selected will be those that have obtained the highest score according to criteria such as impact, relevance, maturity, or the catalytic effects of the funds. The potential beneficiaries of these funds are institutions or companies established in any of the EU countries. They can apply either individually or in groups. Certain international organisations related to the infrastructure and transport sector can also join the competition. How wonderful. That's always good news, isn't it? And let's just remove that from the screen for a minute and have a look. Wayne says thank you, and Kev the Argonaut says good morning Scats, concussion nearly gone but added a broken nose to it on Thursday. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Kev. When are we going to meet up anyway? I know we're at kind of opposite ends of the coast here, but let's organise that. It's got to be sometime this year. Come down and have a meal with me and Chris. Let's see now. I was going to just give you a quick reminder of currency exchange rates. Let's see if I can get that up on screen as well. Normally I talk a lot about smart currency. I'll talk about it while I'm typing, otherwise I'll type the wrong thing. Exchange rates. There we go. They have live exchange rates. Here they are. Let's have a look. Live exchange rates. There it is. Let's put it up on screen and you can see what it says at the moment. Up on the screen. I'm not sure you can see this in the graph. We will switch that round so it's a bit bigger. The very top one is the GB to Euro exchange rate. The live rate is at 1.2, exactly 1.2. That's this figure, as you can see. My cursor is hovering over. Yesterday it was at 1.1993. Last week 1.1996. So it's kind of holding. It's just gradually going up a little bit. Let's have a look at the chart. There it is. It has been rising since January. With a bit of a fall there at the start of February, and it's been sort of wobbling around. But yeah, it's quite strong at the moment. So if you're planning on moving to Spain from the UK, or you're planning on buying a house, especially if you're buying a house, it's even more important that you'll save a lot of money by getting yourself a good rate. And I do recommend smart currency exchange, by the way. There's a link below in the video description which you can click on at no cost to you, which is a win-win-win with cherry on top. And actually I'm going to put it in the live chat as well. Now let's see if I can find the link on my side screen. Where's it gone? Oh yes, it's way up at the top there. Brilliant. And that looks like this. It'll probably appear twice again. There we go. Yes, so you can use that link to smart. Oh, and actually, let's give you this one as well. There you go. There's a QR code for you as well. I'll just leave that on screen for a moment while we move to the next item of news. So which one is next? Yes, it's going to be all about the minimum wage. So let's find that one for you. Minimum wage, which is down here. Spain's annual minimum wage will increase by 700 euros in 2025. That's been going up a great deal actually recently. Let's just take the QR code off the screen now for that, and so you can see the whole screen. But the tax authorities, it says, will retain up to 300. Yes, unfortunately that's going to put some people, but not all of the people who are getting the wage increase, it will put them into the tax category. Deputy Prime Minister Maria Jesus Montero has refused to update the personal income tax rules, which means that 20% of the 2.4 million beneficiaries will have to pay taxes for the first time. The Spanish government has approved a new 4.4% increase in the minimum wage, which raises it to 1,184 euros in 14 payments. Yes, that's interesting to know. It's not just 12 monthly payments. They use 14 monthly payments, and 50 euros more per month. And that came in on Tuesday, the 11th of February. This means a total of 700 euros more per year, from which 2.4 million workers will benefit, although in some cases, approximately 20%, the Treasury will keep up to 300 euros of that, depending on the personal circumstances of each individual. This implies that 42% of the annual increase will not reach the beneficiary. I remember this happened in the UK with various different benefits like working tax credit, and people who were on benefits before and who moved into employment were having difficulty in getting employment because they realised that if they got a job, they'd be worse off than being on benefits, which made it ridiculous for them to get a job, even though they wanted to work. That happened to my daughter as well, and she really, really wanted to work. She didn't want to be on the dole. So let's see. Starting immediately and after the legal loophole created when the Congress rejected the Omnibus Decree and annulled the 2024 minimum wage extension, the minimum wage for full-time employment is set at €16,576 gross per year, which is not bad. I think that's better than the UK's. Is that better than the UK's minimum wage? I'm not sure. Today we are taking, what's that like compared to the minimum wage around the EU as well? Whereabouts are you watching from? Today we're taking a historic step in the new rise in the minimum wage, said Yolanda Díaz, the second Deputy Prime Minister. She celebrated the historic rise of 61% that the current government has made since 2018, when it stood at €735. That's a massive increase. Well done. It suits Spain very, very well. Suits every country very well to raise the SMI, the minimum wage. Contrary to everything that's been written and spread, raising the minimum wage is not a threat to Spain, but the best thing for the country to move in the right direction. Let's say that the history of the SMI in our country is a success story, stated Diaz. Well, I think so. Putting more money into everyone's pocket means that they've got more spending money. They spend more on goods. The gross domestic product goes up, which is exactly what it's done. And I think that's good for the country. It's no point having people on huge benefits. If they can be working and on a decent wage, then I think that's better for everybody. And it's shown to be true in Spain's case here. However, their joy at this new rise translated as clear national disappointment after it was announced that for the first time in history, the minimum wage will not be exempt from paying tax to the Treasury. Contrary to what had happened until now, workers who earn the lowest income, although not all of them, will have to file income tax returns and pay taxes. Whether an individual would be required to pay taxes will depend on the personal circumstances. According to the Treasury, the percentage of people who will have to file tax reports will be minimum. Now, here's a graph of the impact of the minimum salary by region, by autonomous community. This is in percentage of those affected. So it's, that's percentage of 2.4 million. So, for example, here in Andalusia, 16.2% of the 2.4 million across the country will be affected. The worst hit area is Extremadura over here. And let's see, what other regions do we have? Castilla-La Mancha, quite a lot of 15.2. It seems to be less up in the Catalonia region and Aragon and Navarra, La Rioja, País Vasco, but greater along the top coast there in Cantabria, Asturias and Galicia, Castilla y León, that's the biggest region, I believe, 11.4. There's the Madrid one at 12.7, and we've done Valencia 14.1, and we've had Castilla-La Mancha there. What's this one? Murcia, of course, and 8.4 over in the Balearics, and what is it over here in the Canaries? 17.7. Quite bad for them too. They're the second highest percentage. First Deputy PM Maria Jesus Montero has stood firm with Diaz in this battle and has refused to update the personal income tax threshold to 16,576, which was the proposed amount in the original suggestions. Until now, every year the Treasury is raising the IRPF in line with the minimum wage so that it would be exempt from all taxes, but the successive rises in the SMI, more than 60% since 2018, justified for Montero that it's no longer necessary to do so. It is an increase well above inflation. Never before has the SMI risen with such intensity, said Montero. I mean, they do have an argument that once you get over the tax threshold, then you need to be paying tax. So there you go. Oh, it does say fewer taxes for those with children. The Treasury argues that most of the minimum wage workers will continue to be exempt from the IRPF and will pay nothing because the government has already approved the largest reduction in personal income tax for low and medium incomes. According to the experts who recommended a rise between 39 and 50 euros per month, only 20% of the beneficiaries, around 500,000, will pay a maximum tax of 300 euros per year. And there is the graph of the evolution of the minimum salary up to today's levels. Anything else that we need to do? That's according to the Union of Treasury Finance Technicians, the new decision will only affect people earning between 15,876 and the top level of 16,578 euros per year, who are single or separated, without children or personal or family burdens, or married couples filing a single tax return with up to one shared child. All other situations are currently non-taxable. Workers who do not pay withholding tax and earn less than 22,000 euros a year, such as domestic workers, will also be exempt from IRPF. Sumar, a left-wing political group like Gesta, who stated that this limited effect of the decision justifies exempting workers and pensioners earning the minimum wage, not the rest. Oh, that's what they've stated. Yes. Okay. So that's enough of that one. Journey with Steve is giving us more of the details about the missing cyclist. Is this the same as Matt Opperman that you mentioned? Yes, who disappeared on the 27th of January after a van was found abandoned after he vanished. US cyclist, the dad of two, missing abroad with van found abandoned after he vanished. There we go. Thanks for that again. Boca says minimum wage is killing the lowest paid. Food prices are out of control. Why is the... But there's been an increase in the minimum wage. Having a much lower minimum wage surely was more of a problem. Food prices are out of control. They've definitely gone up. People are cutting meals. If the minimum wage was a good idea, why isn't it £2,000? Well, good question, but it's gone up by a huge percentage. And if it was over £2,000, wouldn't people who are in lower wage positions, where wages are paid for more part-time work, wouldn't they start complaining that it wasn't fair to them? I don't know. Would they? That's an interesting question. Why isn't it £2,000? I'd like to see it at a higher level too, but there's got to be some kind of ceiling on it, because obviously businesses need to be paying these wages, and if you increase everybody's wages, then, well, it might increase the number of jobs on the market, because people are going to have to be employed, people are going to have to employ other workers. There's also a talk about cutting the minimum working week, maximum working week, to 37.5 hours instead of 40. So all of this is something that needs juggling. But yeah, it's an interesting point, that. So we have one more news item, I believe, for today's show, unless there's anything else that anybody has to tell us. Let's find out what the final news item is. And that is, here we go. It's a tourism one. Yeah, this is important because there's been a lot of housing protests, etc. I missed I was going to do something about the marches in Madrid as well, but I seem to have missed that one out. Maybe we can come back to that one in a moment. Let's have a look at this one for now. Spain's big challenge for tourism in 2025 is how to grow revenue more than visitor numbers. Yes, the number of tourists arriving is forecast to continue climbing beyond last year's record numbers. In fact, it's forecast to go over the 100 million, which is even more than France, being the largest attractor of tourists at the moment. But the sector is betting on more premium services to avoid being overwhelmed by its own success. All the forecasts indicate, it's just repeating what I've already said, with figures possibly reaching 100 million visitors, according to Jordi Herrero, Minister of Industry and Tourism. The challenge this year is to achieve these numbers while increasing revenue and avoiding the saturation of cities and holiday resort destinations. Yes, certainly, because there have been marches, anti-tourism marches in lots of places, especially on the islands, where there's just not enough housing. According to data issued by the ministry a few days ago, 2024 closed with an all-time record of 94 million foreign tourists in Spain, 10% more than the 84 million visitors recorded in 2023. What tourists spent also reached a record, some 122 billion euros in 1 year. That's 16% more than at the end of 2023, when the sector earned 108 billion. A higher increase in spending compared to the increase in the number of tourists indicates more spending due to two factors: higher prices and more premium services. That is true. And this is the number of tourists. This is the graph. Obviously, there was a huge drop-off in 2020 when you couldn't travel during the pandemic, and that got back up to pre-2020 levels very quickly by 2023, and now historic records there. In other words, more tourists are coming to visit Spain than ever before. Another important observation is that more tourists have started to go to destinations that offer something different from the usual sunny locations close to beaches. The longed for deseasonalisation has pushed up prices, and the National Association of Hoteliers predicts an increase of 5% in rates in the first quarter of 2025. This figure is added on top of the accumulated increase of 35% that Spain has been registering since 2020. Between January and November 2024, the average room rate was almost 120 euros compared to 90 euros for the same period in 2019, according to INE National Statistics Institute data. However, not everything can be based on price increases. Experts recommend that Spain orientates towards high-end tourists to increase revenue through more luxurious hotels, shows, restaurants, more shopping in shops, etc., rather than arrivals. The reason behind can be found in sustainability. Exponential growth in a destination as mature as our country is not only unsustainable, but would have unfavourable consequences such as greater citizen disaffection, a negative environmental impact, and even a worsening in the ability to offer a quality service, said Germán Jiménez, director of Tourism. I think that should say tourism. Tourist arrivals from the US, Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia and Brazil soared last year, both in the number of overnight stays and in consumption level of spending, and even interest in investing in Spain, and something to do with the golden visa as well. I dare say there was an increase, a big increase at the start of this year, of the number of people wanting the golden visa before that stopped. However, Jimenez has stated that the tourism of excellence that Tourism advocates goes beyond the origin of the visitor and focuses more on the typology. It's the type of tourist who respects the environment they visit, who recognises its value, who seeks genuine experiences and local immersion. They travel without haste, with the aim of personal enrichment and avoid overcrowding. Yes, more tourists like that. Madrid is the city that is benefiting the most from this type of long-haul tourism, but many cities in Andalusia, the Basque Country, the Balearic Islands and the Canary Islands have also reaped some benefits of the phenomena. And the INE's figures for the end of 2024 reveal that the number of Asian tourists grew the most, with 14.2% more visitors than in 2023. And the US has established itself as an important source market with 4.2 million tourists, 11.2% more than in 2022. And CaixaBank research has estimated that tourism GP will grow by 3.6% in 2025 after having grown by 6% in 2024, jumping more than 1 point above the growth forecast for the economy as a whole. Tourism will account for 13.2% of the economy as a whole in 2025, reaching its highest level in historical records. So it says, on the one hand, according to economists, it's expected that the main market will improve economically this year, which will boost demand for international travel. On the other hand, prices of tourism services are much more flexible than those in the main competitor countries. So the new trends are more foreigners and a longer peak season. I'd be happier with a longer season. Certainly down here on the south coast, it's still easily a wonderful country to come and overwinter. It's obviously a little bit cooler, but it's still quite warm on the coast down there, even up here in the mountains. But it's just delightful. We do have the rain and the wind occasionally. So there we go. That is our last news item for today. Let's have a look at what it says in the live chat. Here we go. Boca says 60% increase is down to Yolanda Diaz. She has no idea how the economy works. Well, what's your qualification, Boca? It'll be interesting to know. John Carrington says, yesterday, Myra of Citizens Advice Bureau said dual nationals like you and me, Irish and British, can have a green EU citizen registration cert and TIE. No. If you've come over as an Irish citizen and registered as an Irish citizen, you would not get a TIE. You would just have the EU citizen registration. And it said, I would not legally need to carry my original Irish passport. But if you come over as a British citizen, you'd have to get a visa. And what's the point of that? It's very expensive. I don't know why the Citizens Advice Bureau are advising you to do that. That sounds like a very silly idea to me. Why would you want... You can't register as an EU citizen and a non-EU citizen at the same time. That would just be very confusing and very expensive for you. So, yeah, you can... I mean, I don't carry my Irish passport everywhere. I really should. But you could always get the Irish passport card, which is a lot easier to carry around. It's just the credit card size. And that works exactly the same as a passport. You can actually carry a copy of passport on your phone, a photograph of it. That's one way of getting around it, and some guards will accept that, or at least they'll accept that on a temporary measure until you send them details. But you know, when if somebody finds you without the passport on a check and they say take a copy of your passport to the police station, and you take away a piece of paper with a copy of your passport, they'll accept that, and they'll probably look at you gone out for being stopped for something very silly. I know it's not silly to be stopped without your ID, but I think it's quite rare for EU citizens to be made to show their passport at the local police station if they've got a picture of it on their phone. It would be a particularly Jobsworth policeman who was requesting that. One-star traveller Marky Mark says the north of Spain has now become very popular for foreigners, so finding a house to buy is very difficult outside the cities, although it's not so hard in Galicia. That's interesting. And El Davido says more tourists are welcome here in Murcia, around Camposol and Puerto de Mazarón, as long as they keep spending their dosh. Yeah, absolutely. There's this balance, I think, isn't there, between the number of tourists that people want to see and the amount of money that they're spending. It's always going to be the same. Let's just have a look quickly for that. Let's close that. For that news item about the march in Madrid. This was last Sunday, I believe. Where did that go? There it is. I was going to tell you just briefly about this. Around 15,000. I've not got it on the screen. Let's get it up quickly for you. Around 15,000 Madrid residents call on local governments to resolve the housing emergency. They took to the streets on Sunday in the Spanish capital, calling on the regional government to address what they considered to be a housing emergency. This is something that, let's put that on the other side of the screen. It's popped over. This is something that, if you didn't know, regional governments are run not necessarily by the same party that runs central government. A little bit like the American system, as I mentioned earlier, where the states have different legislature. So these particular residents are calling on the local regional government to address what they consider to be a housing emergency under the slogan dignified and sustainable housing now. That's what it says in Spanish. And the protest involved 40 different housing, neighbourhood and environmental, human rights, trade union and social groups, many carrying banners saying derecho a techo, the right to a roof. Demonstration saw a wave of frustration from citizens demanding the right to dignified housing and who argue that the current housing crisis is forcing them to make impossible choices. This is true. So this is the other balance I was talking about, rising rental prices, and they need affordable housing. Absolutely. The people who are working, not just in tourism, but in jobs across the board, are finding it difficult, and the properties in the centre, properties in the nearer the centre of Madrid and the whole region of Madrid just unaffordable to a lot. So they're having to live way out of town, which costs them more in fuel, and so their wages basically are being used up, and they can't afford to live that far out. And let's face it, a lot of the properties outside of can be the holiday properties that they can't afford. Certainly in Andalusia, I know that's the case. Protesters are calling for immediate action to address rising rental prices, housing shortages, and the impact these issues have on working class families. This is something that's not just in Spain, it's happening in many, many places in Europe as well. And it's causing a lot of people to blame tourism and to blame immigrants and to blame anybody except for the growing success of Spain's economy, which will increase prices. They do have to keep a cap on inflation now in the long term. They're urging the regional Madrid government, headed by Isabel Díaz Ayuso of the right-wing People's Party, PP. That's the party that runs that autonomous community, to take responsibility and act on policies that would alleviate the housing crisis and provide affordable housing for all. The demonstration comes at a time when the average price of housing in Spain reached an historic high in the last quarter of 2024, 12.5% above the record levels of 2007, according to the Colegio de Registradores. There you go. So that is the final news item. John Carrington said, Myra from the CAB said, for sure that's so. Under the WEA, the TIECAR card, is that you mean? Under the withdrawal agreement, yes, you would have a TIE card. Yeah, so if you arrived before Brexit, you'd have a TIE card because you would still be a British citizen. But if you change your registration to being an Irish citizen and an EU citizen in that case, then your TIE card would no longer be valid, I would think, because you're no longer registered as a non-EU citizen. Why would you want that when you've got your EU registration card? Except, as you said earlier, so that you've got something to carry in your wallet. I'm carrying around my green card in my wallet, and so far I've not needed to give it. Myra said, for sure we can have a TIE card too. The TIE card costs about 15 cents. The Irish card is 30. Can I suggest you research? Myra is never wrong. Well, okay, I'll research it and check it, but I can't see how anybody can be registered as EU and non-EU at the same time, but I will check it. Thanks for asking, John. I'm going to take a screen print of that just so I remember. Clickety click, there it goes. So yes, thanks once again for asking, John. Let's see, was there anything else to say? Are there any more live chat questions? And everybody, don't forget to do the donations. Suchan is saying thanks for all of the work you put into your channel, Scats. That's lovely of you. 10 GBP, and there's a very good exchange rate at the moment, so I hope that translates into what would it be? 1.2, so that's going to be 12. Is that right? 12 euros. Thank you so much. Minus whatever the fee is that is charged on that. There'll be tax paid, I'm sure, on that as well. Anyway, unless you have anything more to say on the live chat, that is all we have time for this week. Click on the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Why don't you? That will be lovely. And so who do I have on the show next week? I've already told you earlier. I'm very happy to say I'll be chatting to our favourite Hestor, Antonio, who's not only an expert on helping foreigners like you and me with all of the paperwork that Spain demands, but he's a fully qualified accountant too. So he'll be choosing the topics you need help with the most. And of course, answering all of your questions. You can ask questions in advance on our Facebook page if you wish, and you will be answered on the show. Thanks to all of you for joining us and for leaving comments and the live chat and hitting the like button and supporting us with donations and memberships. It is very much appreciated. So I will see you either on the midweek video at 6 p.m. Spanish time on Wednesday, or on Friday's vlog on the Still Alive channel, also at 6 p.m, or live next Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Spanish time. So that's all for this week. David says, another good show, buddy. Adios for now. Yes, thank you all for joining me and for watching all the way through. That is good. The more people that watch the show all the way through, then the more people will see the image on Google search and YouTube search, and they'll get to watch the whole thing as well and listen to the news, and they'll be able to comment down below the video. So thank you to all of you doing that. I'm going to separate the news items into different chapters on the screen. I don't know if I'll get time to do that immediately because I have to get to the pharmacy and pick up my prescriptions before that shuts, but certainly by tomorrow lunchtime they'll all be there. But you can scroll through, and it's very easy to see the pictures on the screen when the news items come up. So, and that's what I'll be doing, scrolling through and adding chapters. So that is all for this week. Somebody pass around the news cookies. Peace and love to you all, or peas and fluff. And here's one final message from all of the voices in my head at YouTooSpain. Take it away, boys. See you soon, and let's dance.
Wave goodbye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.